I lost audio. Do you have audio?
Good morning, everyone. We're standing by here as everyone drops in from the waiting room, so please stand by. Reminder to please mute your microphones. Please mute your microphones. All right, looks like everyone is here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Ashley, and I'm CEO of NAIFA Florida here in Tallahassee.
Do you hear that?
And it's nice to have all of you with us. I'm going to remind you again to please mute your microphones. Please mute your microphones. We can do it from here, but we'd prefer that you do it there so our speakers are not interrupted, our presenters. So please mute your microphones now if you would. Again, it's nice to have all of you with us this morning. To kick things off, I'm going to introduce to you NAIFA Florida State President Craig Duncan. Craig is an agent with State Farm, as many of you know. He's been with State Farm since 1987 in Clearwater, and he is a member of our NAIFA Tampa Bay chapter. We're delighted to have him as our president this year as things begin to wind down for you. Craig, take it away.
All right, thank you. And welcome from the deep woods of central Georgia, where I'm residing at the Grits this week. That's the Georgia Ritz, which has absolutely no resemblance whatsoever to the Ritz-Carlton. But in any case, I'm glad to be with you. I wanted to welcome everybody in. NAIFA is your agents organization. This is the one that represents you in Tallahassee and in Washington, D.C. And indeed, several of us will be in Washington, D.C. in a couple of weeks to meet with our Congress people on stuff that's very important to agents, taxation of our products primarily that we'll be working on. We will also be in Tallahassee on January the 31st and February the 1st. And anybody that would like to come up and see how the process works, it will be our day on the Hill, and we will be visiting with legislators on things that are important to us. So the reason why, if you're not a member of NAIFA, you should be, is we are your insurance to protect your careers and your products. That's exactly what we do. We advocate for agents and for their policyholders. We educate. We give you some of the best speakers in the country that you can listen to. We do CE credits and everything else, and we differentiate. Being a NAIFA member means a lot. It brings a certain amount of respect to the industry. So we would certainly encourage you to join. I know there's a lot of new agents that are on this line. We do have a special deal for new agents. You can join for just $10 a month if you're in your first year, 20 your second, and 30, 40, 50, eventually getting up to $60 a month where it stays level. But where else could you get this kind of career insurance and people are out there protecting your policyholders and protecting your industry than through NAIFA? So we appreciate you joining today. I also serve as State Farm's representative to the Citizens Agents Roundtable. So these folks from Citizens that you'll be visiting with today, I work with on a day-to-day basis. And if you're a State Farm agent and you need help with Citizens, you can always reach out to me and I will help you. NAIFA has a newly appointed representative to the Agents Roundtable, and is Mr. Eric Ponce. So he can help you out if you're a NAIFA member and not with State Farm. And from there, I am going to kick it back to Tom. And Tom, if you would introduce our great cast from Citizens will be speaking to us today.
I'll be glad to do that. Thank you, Craig. Again, just a reminder to everyone to turn your microphones off. And before I do that, I'm going to introduce our executive producer today, Christiane Chanitz, who is going to share with you how she's going to handle the questions and any comments you might have during today's broadcast. Christiane?
Thank you, Tom. Yes, so what we will do is we have some places built out throughout the presentation today to answer your questions live. So go ahead and place them in the chat. If they're more specific to a policy or a link that you're asking for, we'll just respond right to you in the chat. And if it's something that could be answered for everyone's benefit, we'll go ahead and answer that question for you live. So go ahead and place them in the chat and we'll stop periodically and answer your questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that. And she's going to serve as our executive producer today. She is with Citizens, and we're going to turn all the controls over to her today and let her handle that as we move through. At this time, I'd like to introduce Marsha Watson. She's Agent Outreach with the Enterprise Operations there at Citizens. And I think many of you who have been with Citizens for a while know who Marsha is. She's one of the star celebrities over there, I think, Marsha. And we just appreciate all you do. And on behalf of the president of NAFA Florida, our board of directors, and our members, we appreciate what you folks do there at Citizens on behalf of the agent community. And we are delighted to be in partnership with you for these very, very important and informative presentations and webinars that you make. So Marsha Watson, I'm going to turn it over to you for all the other introductions.
Okay, Tom, thank you so much. And excuse me, Craig, thank you for being with us today, taking time out from finding those deer and being here to join and help us today. We truly, truly appreciate our partnership with NAFA. We've worked for many years together, and it is, I think it's very mutual learning experience. We learn from you, you learn from us, and we appreciate the way you're always willing to do things like this to help educate our agents and let them know what's happening. Not that we ever make many changes at Citizens, but we do make a few, and this is a good opportunity to let you know what's new and what's happening or what we're seeing. As Tom mentioned and Craig mentioned, we do have NAFA representatives on our agent roundtable and on our MAC committee, the Market Accountability Advisory Committee. Both groups meet 2 or 3 times, or actually more than that, several times a year. And we try to hold the agent roundtable meetings prior to the MAC, because then the MAC reports up to the Board of Governors. So you've got a strong voice through NAFA with what, your concerns with Citizens. So as Craig said, reach out to your representative, to him, to Tom, to Eric, or to Lee. And also, of course, to us at Agent Outreach or at Citizens, or your agent field manager, whom I'm going to introduce next. And these are the speakers you're going to be hearing from today. Carl Rockman. Most of you know Carl, and he's the Vice President of Agency and Market Services. And Carl will be joining us a little later on. Kelly Abel and George Maynard are two of the 5 of our agency field managers. And you probably know them, and if you don't, their information is right here. And they are always available to you if you have issues, concerns, questions about a specific issue, or need help in any way with what you're doing with Citizens. But they will be presenting the majority of the presentation today. And I have to tell you, this I think is one of the best ones we've done. The material is excellent. They do a great job. And as Christiane said, we've got a spot for questions and answers, but you don't have to wait for that. Just keep putting them in the chat if you have them. And so without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to George, who is one of the agency field managers who will be with us today. And Christiane just brought up the slide. This is the current list of the 5 that we have. And you can see that the areas that they cover based on the color coding. So keep those names available. If you ever don't know who that is, feel free to reach out to Agent Outreach, and we will, we can put you in contact with them. So that's the 5 that we have, and 2 of those, Kelly and George, will be presenting today. So George, it's yours.
Thank you, Marsha. Good morning, everyone. As Marsha said, my name is George Maynard. I think some of you know me. I have been in contact with NAFA for several years now, so I'm sort of familiar with some of the agents in NAFA. It's going to be a pleasure of mine this morning to take a couple of minutes just to go over some important information for you. My presentation will start with the appointment process. And let me state from the inception, we are not looking to grow. NAFA asked us to include a segment in our presentation just in the event a small number of agents may have a real need to be appointed with Citizens given the current market conditions. Now, in order to access the appointment process in our portal, you go to the public website at www.citizensfla.com, and select About Us, as you can see on the screen, as shown on the screen. An important point to note is that Citizens requires the Chrome browser to be used for the My Agency portal. Other browsers are not recommended because they limit the functionality of accessing and completing the appointment process. Next slide, please. And here you can see that once you get to this, hello? Once you get to this page, you click on Business to Business, and that can be accessed either on the tile, as you can see there, or the hyperlink to the left of the page. Next slide, please. And here on the Business to Business page, you can access agencies, and then you click on the agent's hyperlink, as shown there in the slide. Next slide, please. This page here provides a lot of important information concerning the process. This is the meat of the process, and this is something that I'm getting a feedback from somewhere else. Prior to joining Citizen, this agency must have the following in place. They must be registered with the DFS. They must have an active E&O policy with minimum limits of 1 million that covers all appointed agents. They must be appointed with at least one authorized insurer, writing one or more of the following lines of business: personal residential, commercial residential, and commercial non-residential. After meeting those requirements, the agent can now click on the register hyperlink to start the process. As you can see there, the hyperlink register. Next slide, please. And here on the Getting Started page, this provides the information about the total requirements the appointment process require. After reviewing the requirements for appointing your staff, the application details, the training, etc., you can click on the I agree button, which takes you to the agency appointment form. Next slide, please. And here you can see a snapshot of what the form looks like. The form is self-explanatory. When this is completed, you click on I agree, I'm not a robot, and capture. Next slide, please. And this is once that form is completed and submitted, agency management will send you an email, send the agency principal an email acknowledging receipt of the application. And this screenshot gives you an idea as to what this looks like. And here you can see, following the review of the initial application, and if there's no additional information required up to this point, an email is sent to the agency principal providing directions on how to obtain their citizens' credentials and complete the application. Next slide, please. Now, this is a sampling of what is sent to the agency principal. It is basically a link that allows them to set up their citizens' authentication gateway, which is known as CAG, their CAG credentials. And once this is set up, the AP is now able to access My Agency and to complete the appointment process. Next slide, please. And this here represents a part of that application that you see. The circle with a check mark, the green circle with a check mark indicates that all the information for this area has been completed. The red circle with your exclamation mark is indicating that some additional information is needed, and that has to be completed before the application is completely submitted. An important part of the appointment process is some initial training that the agents and agency principals are required to do. There are 6 modules, as you can see. These modules have got to be completed in sequential order. You can't start at number 4 and then jump back to number 1 and so on. You have to start 1, 2, 3, etc. The entire process is wrapped up with the signing of the agency and agent agreement. So once the training is completed, you'll then be given, the agreements will be sent to the agency principal. And if there are any agents involved, They will also get a copy of the agreement, which they will be required to review and sign. And following the payment, the agency principal or agents will be appointed, and a notice of approval is then issued to commence the business operations. Next slide, please. And this gives you an idea as to the different roles of the staff within the agency. All staff touching business, citizens' business, needs to have their own credentials. There should be no sharing of credentials. In 2022, we intend to take a hard look at these agencies that are sharing credentials. There is a staff role in Citizens for everyone, licensed or unlicensed. So to begin with, there are two staff roles for agents, your 220s. One is an appointed agent, an agent of record, and this is the individual, a fully appointed agent. This is the individual who will have their own book of business within the agency. And then the next category of agents would be limited agents, and they will be writing under a fully appointed agent. They will not be, their book of business will be under the agency principal or the fully appointed agent and not under the limited agent. And then you have your customer service representatives. The one who writes at a single location can write business and service, and the one who is responsible for servicing multiple locations, they do not write new business, they just service business for all the locations. And finally, we have a role for those individuals who are at the front desk just answering the phone. They are not allowed to provide any, and they're not allowed to conduct any business other than access the system and provide basic information to the policyholders. So everybody within the agency should be appointed with Citizen once they touch Citizen one way or the other. Now, as part of the appointment process, there were some questions that were asked about the clearinghouse and how that is done. Let me say that from the inception, Citizens sends a weekly database to the carriers of all new agents. So we inform the carriers of any new agents that we have. We do not have the influence or authority to determine who should be appointed with individual carriers. It is up to the carrier to reach out and offer a limited service agreement. The agent will see this on the Carrier Access tab within Clearinghouse. It will then turn red. If you see the red check, it means that additional information is required. The green check mark indicates that all the information has been required and an LSA has been issued. The LSA is subject to carrier review of application, and it's not a guarantee. So sometimes we get these calls, what is Citizen doing to get us appointed? Well, we from time to time will have discussions with them, but we are not in a position to really tell them which agents to be appointed or not. Next slide, please. Now, I know this has become a concern of many agents over the last couple of weeks. I've gotten some calls from some of the agents that I work with about this property inspection program, but as most of you and all of you would realize that this is a requirement of every insurance company. Every insurance company involved in property business has some sort of property inspection program in place, and Citizen is no different. And some recent news you may not have seen revolves around the ordering of property inspection by Citizen. On June the 28th, we sent out a communication giving you more information regarding these inspections. Now let's look at the process here and what is involved in this property inspection that we are now conducting here at Citizen. First of all, the policy or policies are selected by the underwriting. For whatever reason, they decide that X policy or Y policy needs to be inspected. The inspection is then ordered by Citizens with the inspection company. Once this is done, the agent is sent an activity advising that the inspection was ordered. a notice placed on the policy and policy center that an inspection was ordered. The insured receives a phone call from the inspection company to set up the inspection. The inspection company then performs the inspection, and the inspection results are sent back to Citizen. Now, that's the ideal situation, but we've had some situations where we've had some pushback from a number of policyholders because, of course, they are reluctant to allow inspectors into their home or in their premises to conduct the inspection, or just don't want anybody there to do it. We are asking that you give us your fullest cooperation, that whenever you receive those activities concerning those inspections, please have your staff reach out to your policy holders and advise them about it. At the present time, we are not communicating directly with the policy holders. In 2022, we are hoping to be able to set up an email program where the policy holders with emails will be notified. But in the meantime, we ask that you reach out to your policy holders and ask them to cooperate with the inspections. Because failing which, if they refuse to cooperate, then underwriting may take the unpleasant action of canceling their policy. So please cooperate with us. Next slide, please. And these are some of the questions that you may have, or the policyholder may have about the whole inspection process. Some of the questions have to do with, you know, who is the inspection company conducting the inspection. They're calling to set up an inspection ordered by Citizens, or why is Muller calling me, etc., etc. So these are some of the questions that you can see some of the answers here, and these are some of the questions that you are likely to be confronted with from your insurers. The agent may also receive a call from the inspector when they cannot get in touch with the customer for help to get the inspection set up. So sometimes you can expect the inspection company to call you directly seeking your assistance. In that case, we are asking you to assist wherever possible. Something that we have recently decided on, which we can consider as being hot off the press, effective today, and that's coincidental that we're having this this seminar today, and this proof of prior coverage change is taking effect today. Now, as you know, an insured is shopping insurance because the policy they have may be too expensive. And then the agent writes a new business with Citizen as the coverage is more affordable. They now need to request cancellation of the pricey private market policy. They are also being asked by Citizen to provide proof of prior coverage in the form of a cancellation from the private market policy they just canceled. Now, in the past, this has been a problem for a lot of insureds and a lot of agents because some of those carriers take a month, 2 months in order to process a cancellation, and this has interfered significantly in the completion of a new submission to Citizen. What we have decided to do is the agent can use their management system, if that is possible, to get a copy of the cancellation. This is a screenshot of a cancellation, and submit it as proof that the policy has been canceled. The policy has been in effect with a previous carrier, and in that way we'll be able to use this documentation in order to process that application. So this change goes into effect today, November the 18th. So if you have any situation of your policyholders not being able to get a copy of their cancellation from their carrier, this is allowable, and this will be used by underwriting. Next slide, please. At this point, we are open for any questions in relation to what I've just asked, what I just presented.
George, we did actually receive a question for you regarding the appointment process. The question is, do all my staff who are licensed need to be appointed with Citizens in order to write the business?
Yes, that's our policy. Our policy is anyone who has a 220 should be appointed either as a full agent or a limited agent. Anyone who has a 440 should be credentialed as a licensed customer representative.
Right. Perfect. Thank you, George. And then another question was, where is our agency management system, our My Agency, located for the agency principals to access the application process?
To access the application process, they will go to, I think that link is usually sent to them from the agency administration. And from that link, they will go directly to the My Agency portal.
Thank you.
Christiane, could I add, I'm sure that it goes without saying, but if the question about does all the staff who are licensed have to be appointed, and George answered correctly, as for those who are servicing citizens, and I'm sure that was the intent, but if they are, just writing strictly inland marine or life or something like that, they would obviously not need to write us, be appointed with us.
That is absolutely correct. Unless they touch citizens' business in
Exactly.
one form or fashion.
Exactly.
You're correct. Is that Christiane?
Yes, that does conclude the questions. Thank you, George.
Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kelly Apel, Agency Field Manager. Kelly, take it away, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I will now be covering several topics. So I'll get started with, as George mentioned, a brand new Citizens News piece. I also wanted to just touch base on our automated loss history data now in Policy Center. This new enhancement to the system will allow agents to run the loss history report prior to binding. And some of those losses that you see come back in this loss history data report may require proof of repairs. It will depend on the loss type and the loss amount. So there'll be different things that will trigger that proof of repair. And you will also have the opportunity to remove certain losses if they don't apply to that applicant. The on-demand module, we have several pieces of education that are available for you. And the on-demand module is a short 15-minute mini movie that will introduce you to how to use the automated loss history function in Policy Center. If you need more in-depth training, you can try the recorded webinar. And we have an extensive printed job aid that will assist you as well. All of this can be found on Citizens' website, where you'll click on the training tile. Then for the courses, click on-demand training or recorded webinars. For the job aid, it can be found on personal job aids under the new business section. Another thing I wanted to touch base on today is additional document requests. Let's spend a few minutes talking about this. These are requests sent to you through your desktop in Policy Center from underwriting. First of all, you can see how many ADRs you are receiving from underwriting on the My Agency system in the dashboard. There is a tab at the bottom called Additional Document Requests. This will show you by category and by month how many ADRs you're receiving. It is Citizens' desire to try and assist in making policies as one-touch as possible. Underwriting is doing their part to reduce the number of times they write out to you for information, but you have a role you can play as well. By analyzing this tab, you can review these requests and see if there are any trends that you may be able to eliminate within your agency. Now let's look at a document that we've created that will also assist you. We polled underwriting and have a list of the top 5 additional document requests that agents receive. They are 4-point inspection information, photograph requirements, occupancy and use, loss history, and signature requirements. Some of these write-outs can also be applied to performance violations. So it's important for you to study ways to reduce getting these write-outs in the first place. This document should help. For example, with occupancy and use, one of the most common write-outs is when you have a homeowner's policy where the mailing address is different from the property address. That's okay, but underwriting needs to know why. So putting a note on the submission or application remarks explaining why will avoid the write-out. Same if you have a DP where the addresses are the same. We just need to make sure you've used the correct policy form. You may also want to look at your photographs, make sure they're all included. It takes all 4 sides of the house. They're in color and clear. For 4 points, you may want to make sure all the information is correct and included with no deficiencies, which could lead to a performance violation as well. So let's look at the next slide for a couple more examples. We may have taken care of loss history with the previous information on ordering the loss reports prior to binding, but there is still some good information here on proof of repairs. Also, signature requirements are listed as well. Unsigned win mits are the #1 performance violation and so easy to fix. There are also recommended e-learnings and FAQs to further assist you in avoiding these additional document requests. Let's look at where you can find this valuable document. Click on Training, then Personal Job Aids. Look at the resources on the right-hand side, and you will find it as the first link under that category. I encourage you to print this document and share it with your staff because it really makes a difference, and it saves you time because you're not touching the policy twice. It saves underwriting time because they don't have to write out in the first place. So we just encourage you to use this document and take a look at your dashboard and determine if you can reduce any of these additional document requests. Okay, I'll pause for a couple of questions. Christiane, do we have any?
We do not have any questions at this time, Kelly.
All right, let's move on. I wanted to take a minute to touch base on the win-loss mitigation changes that we had. On June 11th, Citizens announced the win mitigation credit structure for homes built in or after 2002 to better address variations in the requirements for win-loss mitigation in the Florida Building Code. This was effective 8/1. We have revised our win-loss mitigation feature help chart to reflect these changes. This is just one page of a lengthier document that covers how you should enter the credits in Clearinghouse or Policy Center. It starts with the policy form and the type of dwelling you are writing. Then you will need to verify the year built. From here, you move down the columns, making the appropriate choices based on whether your client has a win-loss mitigation inspection or not. If you look at homes built in 2002 or later, you will see that we have new guidance on a new website for you to look up the FBC wind speed. Looking this feature up will allow for a more accurate rate, so you will want to take the time to determine and input this. The next slide will show you how that's done. There is a new website where you can find the FBC wind speed you should enter. Eventually, we will have this built into our wind-only eligibility PIWest tool, but for now, to access the job aid on using the new website, click on FAQs, then enter code 4294 in the search field. If you are looking for the win-loss mitigation grid, just enter win-loss mitigation into the search field. On the next slide, we'll show you how to preview the new website. On the ATC website, the first step is to enter the property address. This house was built in 2012. So you would look under the ASCE 7 through 10 and choose risk category 2. Therefore, for this risk, the FBC wind speed is 143. This is all covered in the previous FAQ, which is easy to follow and has the link for the website built in. As I stated before, we're working to build this into our wind-only eligibility tool in the future. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the RCE valuation methods. While you are always required to complete Citizens RCT Express where applicable, if you have another valuation that you would like to have underwriting review to substantiate your Coverage A value, you may do so according to the posted guidelines. You may submit another carrier's replacement cost estimator as long as it matches the RCT Express you ran for Citizens. Some other replacement cost estimators we accept are 360 value and E2 value. You may also submit the following: an insurance replacement cost valuation prepared by a Florida licensed appraiser that is specifically formulated to establish the insurance reconstruction cost instead of the market value. You can also use a property inspection report dated within the last 12 months that was ordered by another property insurance company and includes a detailed replacement cost valuation. And as a reminder, I wanted you to remember that you may go up to 150% of the replacement cost estimate without any additional documentation for mobile homes and 125% on non-mobile home dwellings. We covered information on RCT Express many times, but you may still wonder where you can find resources that can help you out. The handout with all of the course details is also available under the training section. Click on Personal Job Aids and then click on General in the headings section. The first job aid listed is the detailed reference guide that will walk you through anything that you may run into when completing the RCE and RCT Express. There are also recorded webinars to view as well.
That's my girl. That's my girl.
Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about the inflation factor adjustments. There are inflation factor adjustments for renewals. The inflation adjustment will increase the policy's Coverage A amount, which may increase premiums for renewals on or after January 1st of 2022. Reminder, this note is not, this change is not a rate change. When an inflation factor is applied, the following statement will display on the declarations page for the insured. Your property coverage limits have been adjusted for inflation. Non-renewals. Citizens will non-renew policies with an inflation factor resulting in a replacement cost that exceeds the applicable maximum Coverage A limit. As a result, affected policyholders will receive a notice of non-renewal. And this will basically state your policy is ineligible for renewal due to the annual inflation-based adjustment to your dwelling's value. The coverage limit for upcoming renewal term exceeds Citizens' maximum coverage limits based on replacement cost as established by law. So as a reminder, dwellings with a replacement cost of $700,000 or more and single condominium units with a combined dwelling and contents replacement cost of $700,000 or more continue to be ineligible for coverage. This is a statute and not, we can't make any exceptions to this rule. Now that doesn't apply, for Miami-Dade and Monroe, that maximum is $1 million. So a little different for those two counties. Agents should review the policy's current coverage limits to ensure adequate coverage exists. You can submit a policy change and complete a new cost estimator or provide an alternative evaluation document to amend the Coverage A amount. RCT Express now reflects the updated costs of construction to align with the inflation adjustments. Any RCT Express that's created or updated after October 1st will reflect that new cost information. And this includes new business quotes and policy changes. Of course, it's important to insure properties for the full replacement cost. This can prevent dwellings from being underinsured in the event of a loss. And one little sidebar I wanted to add on this is in regard to depopulation. one of the things you might want to consider is if the home is over 500,000, you might really want to encourage those insureds to go ahead and choose the carrier if they make an offer, because the inflation guard factor could increase to the point where it could cause them to be non-renewed eventually from Citizens. So it's easy to go ahead and take it at the time the depop carrier is offering the different coverage. So just wanted to point that out in case it was something you hadn't thought about before. Let's continue talking about high value risks. I wanted to make sure that you were aware of a relatively new requirement. You may or may not have seen this. If the coverage A is equal to or above 600,000, or the square footage is equal to or above 4,000, you will need some additional photo requirements. You'll need one interior photograph overview of each room, upload the required comprehensive photos of all interior rooms of the main living area, kitchen, all bedrooms, and all bathrooms, including the walls, ceilings, and floorings. So just wanted to take a minute to update you on that because you may or may not have been aware of that requirement. Another thing you can do, this is so cool about my agency and the dashboard. We've talked about it a couple of times already. You can go to my agency, and one of the tabs at the bottom is called Book of Business. Now this will access your book of business by both policy count by form type and policy count by effective date. One of the neat little tools is you can export this book of business. So all the way across on the right-hand side from policy details above the little spreadsheet, there's an ellipsis. If you click on the three dots, it will drop down a menu and you choose Export Data. And when you export data, it will send that book of business into an Excel spreadsheet for you. And on the next slide, it will show you what that spreadsheet looks like. And one of the things you can do with this would be sort by your coverage A to determine that what high value properties you may have coming up for renewal, because it shows you the policy effective date, the expiration date. It'll show you your coverage A amount and other information that you may want to sort through. So this is a really good way for you to be able to kind of look at your upcoming renewals and determine if there's an insured that you need to have a conversation with. Okay, time to pause for some more questions. What do we got, Christiane?
All right, Kelly, we did have a question going back to the additional document requirements or requests that you were talking about. Do the agents get notified by email if there are any ADRs sent to them?
Good question. All notifications for additional document requests will come through the desktop on Policy Center. Underwriting does not email you for any information.
Perfect. Thank you. We did also get a question going back to George's section regarding the new proof of cancellation requirement that we're allowing. Is this a citizens only requirement, or are the clearinghouse carriers allowing that document to be submitted as well for proof of prior?
This would be a citizens only requirement. The carriers have their own underwriting guidelines.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think that is all the questions we have for now.
All right, rolling right along. We have had a lot of information or a lot of questions regarding roofs and non-renewals and cancellations on new business regarding roof conditions. So I wanted to talk about that for a few minutes. There is a document that we've produced called Home Condition Requirements, and this is also found on the training section in the personal job aids area. On this document, it will tell by home age and roof type what types of proof of updates you may need. It also tells you what conditions are unacceptable for each major system in the home. For roofs, you may want to make sure you pay attention to any damage, excessive wear, and know how many years of remaining useful life that you have left on a roof. And let's talk a little bit more about that. As an agency field manager, we get several calls about cancellations and non-renewals for roof age. Two things you should consider. The remaining useful life not only applies to the primary roof, but also any secondary roof. So if a flat secondary roof only has a remaining useful life of 2 years, but the predominant roof has 17 years, we will reject or non-renew that risk. Check your inspections carefully for the remaining useful life. Our underwriting guidelines say that the risk must have at least 3 years of remaining useful life for us to write the risk. My recommendation would be to go with 4 years. If the dates on the inspection show the home will be less than 3 years of useful life prior to the renewal, the policy may not be accepted. With all the water losses occurring, we pay particular attention to roof age. Just a few more tips on the next slide. Remember, if the inspection lists a remaining useful life age range of 5 to 10 years, you should enter 5 in Policy Center. We're going to go with the lowest number. Also remember that if the roof only has 3 years remaining useful life left, it will be set to non-renew at the next renewal if they actually accept the risk. On the next slide, let's review some website resources that will help you with training yourself and any new staff you may bring on board. When you start your day, always log on with citizensfla.com and use your systems menu to access Citizens System. All systems you need to work your day are located on that tab. If you're hiring new staff or you need a refresher on Citizens, let me show you the best place to go. You'll click on the green training tile. Then there is a summary of each page within the training tab down the center under the overview, and the hyperlinks are located over on the left-hand side. The pages located on the training tab are Performance Standards, which will give you all the information about performance violations and late submissions you need to know. Citizens Essentials, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. The live education, so anything scheduled for live education, you'll see there. On-demand education are those mini movies I was telling you about. Webinar recordings are the more in-depth courses that we've already done that you may want to review. Personal job aids, I've mentioned several times, and then commercial job aids. Now let me focus on the Citizens Essentials page. This is a new agent's best friend, or someone who hasn't written Citizens in a while. You really want to visit this page. It can be the best thing that you really access on this training site. There are 6 courses available to understand Citizens flow on new business. The first course helps you identify what is eligible for Citizens and pre-qualifying that business. The second one walks you through a quote and clearinghouse. And the third finishes out the submission after you bridge over to Policy Center. You can also utilize all of the resources over on the right-hand side that will give you wonderful job aids and helpful tools to write successfully with Citizens. The reason why it's important to really be as accurate and clean as possible on your business is at some point in time, our market's going to settle down and we're going to open up, Depop will be much more open than it is now. And we want to make sure that the risks that you're sending us are nice and clean and accurate so that it will be more attractive to those carriers when we try to move them out. So all of these things really, really assist you in being able to write successfully with Citizens and avoid performance violations and late submission violations. And there's a process flow to Citizens. And the 3 courses I mentioned will really teach anyone what that flow is and the best way to be successful writing Citizens business. There are also courses on, like number 4, which is doing policy changes and servicing. And then courses 5 and 6 are on commercial. So very, very helpful information. Any questions?
We did have a really good question, Kelly. Would you be able to explain the difference between those 6 modules you just showed us and the 6 new agent onboarding modules George mentioned earlier?
Absolutely. The first 6 that you have to take to be appointed barely scratch the surface. It really just introduces you to Citizens and some of our initial or the initial information that you need to know to get appointed with us. To actually write business with us, these Citizens Essentials courses go into much more depth. They really tell you what we'll take, what we won't take, how to successfully do a clearinghouse quote and navigate through the system, as well as once you bridge over to Policy Center, which is probably the most difficult piece of the process. It walks you through screen by screen how to complete that submission, upload your documents. So it's a much more in-depth much more in-depth than the first initial 6 courses that you take. The first initial 6 courses probably total take you an hour and a half to complete. So it's really more of an introduction to Citizens. And then these courses are more in-depth. They're about an hour to an hour, 15 minutes a piece, but well worth the time invested.
And
Perfect.
they could be considered as continuing education as well.
Okay. So any more questions, Christiane?
Nope, that was it. Thanks, Kelly.
All right, now I will turn it over to our illustrious Carl Rockman.
Hi, thanks. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you, George and Kelly, for a great presentation. We are going to watch the clock and get everyone out here just a little bit early, but I did want to give everybody that attended today a little preview of coming attractions, the road ahead. A lot of you are managing sizable Citizens books. Some of you are getting back into Citizens for the first time. And I'm sure, as George and Kelly stated, we are not here looking to grow. We are not here looking to compete with the private market. Please, please take care of your private market carriers first and foremost. They are critical to the success of the state of Florida, okay? But if you need to use Citizens or you're working with customers we mutually serve, let's talk about what the next 4 quarters are going to bring, okay? Q4 on the left, all right? I'm sure George and Kelly hit on this, but the loss history reporting at point of sale, we had a little glitch with it. The glitch is fixed as of today. So you really should see loss history reports being ordered systematically and consistently on your Citizens New Business. Proof of repair required. I know George and Kelly talked about that, but that was a significant change. We are going to be introducing some things around the Office of Foreign Asset Control. But primarily what I need everyone to take away is this: Social Security numbers for Citizens are going to be required. Let's just go there now, all right? You need them for good loss history reporting results. Our OFAC program is going to require them as well. I know a lot of carriers do. We are going to start. We are not ordering credit, okay? But we are going to need you folks to get that Social Security number if the consumer has it. If they don't, there's a default. My Policy also, the great My Policy platform where customers can look at billing, file a claim, do some things inside of My Policy to help themselves, not bind or do any policy changes, but at least self-serve. That's going to be an auto registration platform coming up very soon. So if the customer comes to us, they're going to get an automatic invitation to My Policy. More to come on that. These are previews of coming attractions, but we do need your support there. Inflation adjustments, okay? Kelly talked about this. RCT inflation adjustment, we took one in Q4, okay? And you can see in Q1 and Q2 and Q3, you can expect us to take maybe not as large an inflation adjustment as we took last time, but nonetheless, we do anticipate taking inflation adjustments when they're presented. Also, rate adjustments in Q1. You'll notice a Q1 rate adjustment that'll be in February. We also do plan on going to our board in December to seek approval for another rate increase and rate adjustment in Q3 of next year. It is critical that Citizens take its current rate and do what we can to elevate our rate. We are actuarially unsound in terms of our rates, and we need to bring our rate up closer to the private market. And we have every intention of doing that. We have been very quiet for the last 3 years or so in not taking rates. But reason I'm bringing this up is your Citizens book, it's renewed, there hasn't been rates. Now they're going to start seeing rate adjustments. Those are great, great shopping opportunities. Customers will call you for solutions. And let's keep our fingers crossed that you have private market solutions that you can move those customers through as the Citizens rate starts to creep upward. And speaking of private market solutions, last thing on the board is depopulation. We are anticipating a depopulation action in February of next year and in Q2 and in Q3. Some of you have been through that before. Some of you have not. Okay, so please pay attention because we're going to over communicate the opportunity when it comes. We do have 2, if not 3 carriers interested in participating, subject to OIR approval in February. And we're very, very optimistic that we're going to get back into the game of putting customers back into the private market. Because again, as Kelly mentioned, and I'm sure George did, think of us as a holding company. We are not a permanent solution. And everything we're doing about underwriting and rigor around the quality of our business is important because we don't intend to keep it. We intend to move it to the private market. They need confidence in the quality of that business. They need confidence in the agent producing it. And we know we have that. So everyone just hang tough because we do anticipate depopulation kicking back into gear with Citizens at all-time record levels. We believe that we are a great opportunity. We present a great opportunity for a carrier to come in and capitalize and move some business over to their books. So along with that, Citizens Live webinars. If you like what you saw today, stand by. Both this association and Citizens will continue to sponsor live webinars all throughout next year. And we do anticipate doing them. We want to invite everybody to come in. We think they're very effective and a great way to stay close to our great agent community. So with that, I'm going to close and see if there's any last questions that we can address, Christiane. Well, we got a minute or two.
Sure. We did have one question about how far back we are considering losses in our new loss history reporting up front. The question was, how far back do we go? Some have really old claims.
Correct. I believe, and someone will help me, I believe it's 5 years is the current rule. We look back, we do a 5-year look back, and then we apply an algorithm based on loss frequency. So if the losses occurred after 5 years, they're not subject to the underwriting rules. So 5-year cycle. Okay, thank you.
The other question was, when is the, you had mentioned on your road ahead that we will be requiring social security numbers.
Yeah.
Do we have a go live date for that?
Generally going to be around the end of December. You guys are getting a preview of coming attractions. Okay, so you'll see bulletins and memos on it. And also Policy Center is going to start fussing at you. But we thought we'd use this moment to, if you can just start getting into the habit now, it would save you some time and some energy down the road. But please provide them. They're really good at getting a great hit on loss history. And with our Office of Foreign Asset Control requirements, federal requirements, we definitely need that social or your indication that the policyholder does not have one, which you'll be able to do in Policy Center. Okay. With that, Christiane, I'm also showing our great field management team. Thanks again to Jim and to George and Kelly, who are our lead presenters. But we also have Eddie, Brian, and Jim out there working with agencies every day. If you don't have a relationship with one of these great folks, please reach out. They won't be shy about connecting with you. If we see your agency struggling at any level with phone calls, with underwriting requirements, with claims, we're not going to be shy about knocking on your door. Please take our call. Please. We want to help you and help the customers we mutually serve. So these folks are very, very busy these days, but their intentions are very pure. So please reach out to them if you need help, and we won't be shy as well. With that, Christiane, I think we're going to turn it back over to Tom for some closing comments, or are we concluded for the day?
Very good. Thank you, Carl. Very much appreciate your efforts this morning. Also to Kelly and George for your fine efforts as well. We appreciate it. Again, we appreciate the partnership between NAIFA Florida and Citizens. Very, very helpful to our members here statewide. And certainly, I believe it's helpful to you folks there at Citizens to have this type of communication. If you're interested in joining NAIFA Florida, we'd love to have you. I posted the membership information, the link to join in the chat feature early on. Simply just type in naifa.org if you didn't see it in the chat, and you'll find the join tab, and we'd love to have you. We need all the agents and all the support we can get to help protect you, as Craig mentioned earlier, protect your pocketbooks, protect your purses from the state and federal government. You know, we're all about advocacy and working with our legislators and our members of Congress, not to mention the governor's office and the Oval Office in Washington as our efforts take place and move forward. So we'd love to have you. feel free to join us. My thanks to all of you for being on. We really set a record, Marcia. We had about 195 on at one time, which is just outstanding. We do hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time around. So thanks very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Tom.